Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is March 4th. Early March is a threshold. The ground is still holding winter. You can feel it in the resistance of the soil when you press your boot into it. But the light is returning. It's thinner, paler, but it stretches just a few minutes longer each evening. And it makes gardeners look differently at the land. We stop seeing brown stalks and frozen mulch, and we start seeing ghosts. The ghost of a peony that will soon break the surface. The ghost of a trellis that hasn't been built yet. Today, we meet 4 people who saw the land with that same visionary intensity, sometimes as a kingdom to be conquered, and sometimes as a cathedral to be entered. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1741 that the Spanish botanist Casimiro Gómez Ortega was born. Casimiro stood at the center of an idea that defined the 18th century, that plants could build empires. As director of the Royal Botanical Garden of Madrid, Casimiro transformed it from a medicinal herb plot into a global scientific engine. Under his guidance, the garden moved in 1781 to its grand location along the Paseo del Prado, designed in formal terraces, organized by Linnaean order. Nature disciplined into knowledge. Casimiro believed the garden was not a refuge. It was a laboratory. He oversaw vast botanical expeditions to the Americas and the Philippines, directing collectors across oceans, turning forests into inventories. In 1779, he published a remarkable manual, simply called The Instruction, detailing how to keep living plants alive during months at sea. Ships were required to build special plant cabins. Fresh water was rationed and often reserved for specimens before sailors. Imagine a sailor parched under a tropical sun, watching a botanist tip the last of the fresh water into a pot of soil. It was a brutal kind of devotion, a belief that a single seedling from the New World was worth more than a man's comfort, because that seedling held the future of a nation's medicine. Those green cargoes mattered. Casimiro argued that plants were as valuable as gold. Cinchona for medicine, cinnamon and pepper for trade, knowledge itself as power. Casimiro once wrote, 12 naturalists, with as many chemists or mineralogists spread throughout the state, would produce utility incomparably larger than 100,000 fighting men. For Casimiro Gómez Ortega, land that was not scientifically cataloged was wasted. Yet Casimiro's reign was not permanent. As political favor shifted, so did botanical authority. His rivalry with fellow botanist Antonio José Cavanillas eventually ended his tenure. By 1801, Casimiro was forced into retirement. The garden passed into new hands. A new philosophy followed, but his legacy remains everywhere. In the zinnia blooming by a fence, in lemon verbena brushed by a passerby, and in the idea that plants could be collected, named, and made to serve. Casimiro reminds us that gardens have always carried ambition. And it was on this day in 1851 that the Greek writer Alexandros Papadiamantis was born on the Greek island of Skiathos. He believed the entire landscape was already planted. He called it O Athanatos Kipos, the boundless garden. In his stories, the hillsides of thyme and pine, the monastery courtyards, the rocky paths above the Aegean, all formed a single sacred design. He wrote of monks tending vines and olives, not as agriculture, but as prayer. He named wild plants the way others name saints, their scent turning mountains into incense. Alexandros liked to say that he could smell his island before he could see it. The wind would carry the scent of sun-baked resin and wild oregano across the water. Alexandros once wrote, "The forest was a temple, the breeze a prayer, and every flowering shrub a small, silent miracle offered to the sun." Alexandros rejected the idea that gardens must be owned or improved or ordered. The sea was his boundary, the horizon his hedge. Today, visitors still follow the Papadiamantis trails across Skiathos, moving through the same pine shadows, the same herbal air. Alexandros' work survives as a literary herbarium, preserving a landscape before it was reshaped by tourism. Alexandros reminds us that sometimes the garden is already complete. In today's Unearthed Words, we hear an excerpt from the life and work of the English novelist, travel writer, Francophile, and prolific poet Matilda Betham-Edwards, born on this day in 1836. Matilda knew the soil firsthand. After her father's death, she helped run the family farm in Suffolk, learning weather, labor, and patience. Later, she carried that knowledge into her writing, becoming a beloved interpreter of French provincial life. Matilda avoided grand chateaux. She wandered lanes, she lingered in village gardens, and she wrote a small poem, still recited today, that gardeners recognize instantly. God, make my life a little flower that giveth joy to all, content to bloom in native bower, although its place be small. There is a particular peace in the native bower, the garden that doesn't try to impress the neighbors or win awards. It's the patch of dirt that knows your name. Matilda believed the garden's power lay not in scale, but in care. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Martha Stewart's Gardening, Month by Month, by Martha Stewart. This book is part of Spring Awakening Week here at the Daily Gardener. It's a collection chosen for the moment when gardeners shift from waiting to watching and from dreaming to doing. Published in the early 1990s, Martha's book remains a masterclass in seasonal gardening. Rather than treating March as a month of delay, it presents it as a month of preparation, of noticing light, soil, and timing. The pages move through pruning and planning and seed sorting with the steady rhythm of a working garden, balancing structure with patience. What the book does especially well is hold two truths at once: the garden as a laboratory and the garden as a sanctuary. For gardeners standing on the March threshold, it offers a steady companion, guiding the shift from winter's imagination to spring's work. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day, March 4th, in 1865, that the Estonian writer Edward Vilde was born. Edward spent his life writing about class, labor, and truth, and ended it living inside a park. On his 60th birthday, the Estonian government gave him a modest house inside Kadriorg Park, once part of a grand imperial estate. The irony was not lost on him. Edward had written about peasants and power, and now lived among clipped lawns and old trees. Outside his window stood a living wall, a traditional hedgerow, grown, not built. And there is something so poetic about a writer of truth living behind a fence made of trees. A wooden fence eventually rots. A stone wall eventually cracks. But these living fences grow stronger and thicker with every passing sprig. A boundary that doesn't shut the world out, but invites the birds in. Edward wrote of northern spring, not with abundance, but with restraint. He wrote, "The beautiful grove was still bare. Only here and there were younger trees and bushes, and the tenderest of lacy growth, almost seeming to give out light." Edward's words are a reminder that even quiet landscapes speak. As we close the show today, remember, gardens have always held competing truths. They are Casimiro's ambition, the desire to name, to order, and to possess the world's beauty. They're Alexandros' prayer, the realization that the most beautiful garden is the one we don't plant ourselves. And they are Matilda's contentment, the quiet joy found in a native bower, no matter how small. Whether you are planning a grand estate this spring or waiting for a single crocus to push through the snow in a terracotta pot, you are part of this long botanical lineage. Where you stand among them today is your own story to write. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.